Hey, welcome back to the Few Show, everybody. My name is Bud. I am Chief of Staff at Xfusion.io and co-host of the Few Show. I'm excited to be joined today by my guest, Saumya Bhatnagar. Saumya is CPO and co-founder of Involve.ai, an AI-driven early warning dashboard that helps companies predict churn and revenue growth opportunities using customer data. Before starting Involve.ai, Saumya co-founded a startup right out of high school in New Delhi, focusing on using technology to reduce gender-based abortions in India. She did her undergrad in computer science and went on to earn her master's in computer science from the University of California, Santa Cruz, with a focus on natural language processing. She is a Forbes 30 Under 30 alum, winner of the Stevie Gold Entrepreneur of the Year Award, recognized as a 50 most powerful women in tech by the National Diversity Council, and is on the list of top 100 women in technology. Saumya is a strong advocate for more representation for women in tech and is the founder of a nonprofit in India for women empowerment. Saumya, there is a lot to unpack there. Welcome to the show. It is great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Bud. Yeah, that was a long 60 seconds, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem. Not a problem. So, start off, you met your co-founder, Gaurav, in a coding class in India when you were fairly young. You were in a class of 160 students. You were one of 3 female students.
It was
How was that?
Yep, we talked a lot of cricket, which bored me to death. That was for sure. A lot of cricket conversations. But I think it's important to just go ahead and do what you're doing. I would have loved to have more women there. I feel it would have been a little easier. But I got a friend like Gaurav. He is, totally like a feminist friend. So he was really helpful. But yeah, you at a very young age, if you are a minority to that respect, you start getting slights very early, very early. So you start feeling, I think, very negative very early. So again, I became a stronger advocate of women empowerment at that time, because my dad told me you can be whatever you want to be, and then there are these people in this class who were telling me I can't. So
Right?
it was a different experience, for a lack of a better word. When I met Gaurav, we were 15. It's really funny because now people tell us that we kind of know each other since the womb. I've practically known him half my life. But yeah,
Right.
we were both grade A nerds fighting over the front desk. I won't let anybody, I won't back down, and neither would he. Eventually, we were both turned out of the class. The professor was like, "You're creating a ruckus, go stand outside." But that's kind of what got us to kind of bond, because we were standing outside having to do nothing and we were talking to each other. But that's where we shared our passion for coding. We both realized that we love it, and it's beyond gender. You love something together. And that's where we started working on our project. We started working on it together. It was a project back then, which eventually became a company. We were about 15 when we started, but always, we were very entrepreneurial since the beginning, giving our poor parents like heart attacks left, right, and center, because every 3 months, like, our idea was to drop out of school and start something. And they were like, "You have to study. I need those certificates on the wall, to show off to other parents that, look, my child is educated." But yeah, we know each other since then. There's no looking back since. We've started 2 companies, and hopefully we start 3rd and 4th together too.
Okay, so this conversation is going to go a little bit different than our normal conversation. We'll get into Involve AI as we progress here.
Yeah.
But since you brought this up, you guys started a company together at the age of 15, 16,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that was ITI.
Yes.
And you guys, at the age of 15, 16, have a company, and that grew into about 40 employees, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
and then you guys sell that off around the age of 21. So go ahead and tell me a little bit about ITI and what that was, because I think that's an incredible company. And is that still going? And then we'll kind of talk about how that evolved into your next company and how that evolved into Involveai.
Yeah.
Or evolved into Involve.
Exactly. Evolved into Involve. So the first company that we started was actually a lot based on my personal experiences. So again, I come from a family of two daughters in a country where at that point, like not having a son was considered not a great thing. So I remember a lot of relatives looking at my mom with, for lack of a better word, pity, and going like, "Oh, you don't have a son, so bad. You don't have like, an anchor in your family." And, it was kind of silly. And my dad was 100% a girl dad. He was, not taking any of that. And he's like, "Don't worry about it." So that's where like the idea started, where there was a law that came out in India because of the gender ratio becoming extremely wonky. Basically, people would do a sex determination of the child after 14 weeks, which is after which you can figure out if the baby's a girl or a boy, and they would abort based on gender. So there was a point, and this is all like very well documented online, which is entire villages in India did not have females because they just aborted all females because they wanted men. So this law came out in India, which was called the PNDT Act, which basically banned sex determination. Period. There was baby, what is that? The gender reveal parties aren't a thing in India because of that, because so gender reveal is post-birth. So what we started doing was we started creating this software for radiologists specifically. It kind of became like a documentation portal to get all the details of the patients. It was a patient experience platform. But then we started running some very rudimentary machine learning before machine learning was cool, based on demographic data, based on socioeconomic data, based on education level, based on like previous babies, like how the gender of your previous kids, whether somebody is likely to abort based on gender, because there were a lot of people who were still doing it unscrupulously. So being able to report that to the government was what the product was. We would sell directly to radiologists, and it was a need because if there was a patient who's coming to a radiologist regularly and then aborted their child, the radiologist would be liable. So that was kind of what the entire product was. It was a very different experience because, again, we were doing it for the first time, obviously, but then we also learned sales. It's not just about building the product. It's about having conviction in it and going and selling it and then understanding how revenue works and business models work. It was a lot to digest, and we fell on our face a lot, so again, maintaining good standards of the product, like, as developers, you don't know how to QA code, you just push it out. And, there were these small things that we learned. We understood processes, hiring, unfortunately firing, building a team. We were just, I think at one point, like waterboarded with like different information. We had a lot of advisors, a lot of help. Eventually, the company sold. It was a small exit. It was enough for Gaurav, my co-founder, to buy a house for his mom, and enough for me to buy more shoes than I can imagine. So I was very happy. But we sold the company. But the really great thing that happened from that was the company that we sold it to further sold the entire product to the government of India. So it got mandated across northern India, which is really funny because now my mom, who's a radiologist, has to use it. And she is pretty mad about it. She's like, I should have nipped it in the bud.
So great. Yeah. It's like, thanks, Saumya.
He was like, thank you. She's like, if this is what I have to deal with, I paid for your education. I gave you food. I gave you water. And this is what you do to me. Force me to use this.
Say, no, I sold it before you were forced to use this, Mom.
Exactly. She said, but the money went in shoes and we're not even the same shoe size. So there's nothing. There's no upside for me.
Wow. So, yeah, you learned lots of incredible lessons while you were young.
Very young.
Young. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, what an incredible story. Did you guys get lots of pushback trying to sell this and get this going because you guys were so young?
Yes. Short answer being yes. The only, I think, positive that we had was it was greenfield in the market. There was nothing else like it. And the product spoke by itself. It was a good product. Of course, when it got further adopted and got further sold, of course, they added all the bells and whistles and, kind of made it software as a service and made it really great. But the product in itself was technology that somebody wanted to have. So that was the positive. We had a lot of data. Again, in India, HIPAA compliance is kind of non-existent. So we did have a lot of data about, the signals that can potentially cause gender abortion. And it was a huge push by the government at that time. So people, of course, wanted to buy it. The M&A process in itself, I think, is something that's the hardest thing that we've had to go through. And I wouldn't say that it was me and Gaurav who did it by ourselves. We had so many people who were helping us through the process. I think as much as our parents could help us, they did it. But yeah, that was, I think, till date, one of the hardest things that I've done so far.
Well, good for you. Like that's an incredible story. So then you guys sell that.
Yep.
And then do you guys start this next company together, or did you come to the States and go to school while Gaurav starts the next company?
It was really funny because when we sold it, we skipped school for a bit to be able to sell it. And we talked about retiring for a little bit because it was emotionally exhausting for us. So we were like, do we want to go back or not? We're like, okay, let's go back to like some semblance of normalcy, like kind of like do stuff what people our age are doing and see where that takes us. So Gaurav we had an advisor at PwC. He got Gaurav to come to DC and he was at PwC there. I completed my bachelor's, I did my master's. I came to the US and did my master's at UC Santa Cruz. I always loved to code and, with this whole realm of ML, natural language, considering I talk so much, of course I had to go into a natural language processing, but I truly enjoyed that process. And then I got a job offer at Google. Google recruits a lot of people from UC Santa Cruz, which was great. So I met Gaurav for a coffee. He was there too. He came to visit me, check out the campus. He's like, I want to see what you banana slugs are all about. But we met at a cafe, and the goal of that meeting was me to review my contract with him and go like, what does this look like? Everything checks out for me. And he had like extreme FOMO. He's like, if you go there and you go to their cafeteria and then you eat their food, you're never going to go back to a startup. So he's like, we need to start our next company. And we have all of these ideas. And the same meeting, which was supposed to be my contract review meeting, turned into let's figure out what to do next meeting. And I didn't take that offer and we started our next company.
Well, good deal. Good for him too.
Good for him. I keep telling him that every day.
Yeah. Yeah. He knew what he had.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not going to lose you.
Exactly. like, I can offer you all this
Yeah.
fancy Google cafeteria food and like the amazing culture, and like it's like not happening.
Okay. So then in 2016, you guys start, what was it just called Involve then?
Yes. So in
Okay.
in 2016 we started Involve. Um, it was something that we felt closely about. It was a community engagement platform. So basically, it helped B2B company. It helped companies set up like community events. So it was like meetings, volunteering events, events around like community engagement. So that's kind of what the entire system did. Uh, it did really well. We raised a seed round on that idea, which was a fairly big seed round for Southern California. It was the largest seed round for that quarter. It was about 2.5 million. We had some really good VCs back us, who still back us, which is amazing. Um, but COVID hit eventually, and if an entire platform is around events and meeting each other, um, everything came to a standstill.
Sure.
So, I think that was the second hardest time when we had to rethink really hard what to do next. And we had some very supportive people on our board. They told us that we back you as people, and whatever you do, you're going to do a great job. So we're sure you can figure it out. No pressure, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But when somebody says no pressure, you feel the pressure, which is
Oh, yeah.
it's very counterintuitive. But we thought through what to do next. We had very good net dollar retention up until COVID. That was one thing that we had for our business. We were expanding customers, we were renewing customers. We had 120% net revenue retention, which is unheard of in the SaaS world. So what we used to do in our customer successes, we had Python scripts that would take in different data elements of the customer. So whether it's product usage or support tickets or interaction, and basically we would spit out a number which would be their health score for us to know if this customer is at risk proactively or not. So during the COVID time, what we did was we gave that out to a couple of our CEO friends who were dealing with the same thing, like COVID kind of very, rudely stopped everything in everybody's world. So our CEO friends tested this out and were like, we love this. This is amazing. This is gonna I already know which customers are at risk. Why don't we productize this? And that's where we went yeah, this is a great idea. We need to give this to more people, especially because COVID is so unpredictable. We really don't know. We need as much data-driven customer intelligence to be able to let people know which customers to save, which ones to expand. So that started the inception of Involveai. It was about exactly a year ago that we decided to pivot and we built Involveai. We grew tremendously. We grew 40% month over month since September, still growing at that pace. And yeah,
That's crazy.
No looking back.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah. So you never know.
You never know.
I mean, you have issues that you find internally. You're like, we got to fix these. And then outside influences, COVID.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, so we have all this. And you say, okay, I think we have a solution. And then you just share it with a couple people, and they're like, your solution works.
Yep.
I'm like, okay, well, I guess it's time to pivot.
Exactly.
And now you have this incredible, this incredible platform. So, I mean, good for you guys.
Yeah, it was
and now,
fun.
at the age of, I don't know, you're not that old.
No, I'm not.
Coming up on 30-ish.
Yeah.
you have more entrepreneurial experience than a lot of people that we've had on this show. And I mean, that's a fantastic story.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun. You become an adrenaline junkie, you know? It's like, you know, if it's something's not happening, something's wrong.
Yeah.
It's the, you know, I think startup people are always startup people. Difficult challenges are what we thrive on. And, you know, I'm sure you know that as well. Like, if it's not challenging and it's not challenging your brain enough, you're just, you know, something's just not right, you know? So it was interesting. It's stressful, but it was interesting. But it kind of like we were paralleling it to, you know, how Slack started as a gaming company, but then Slack was their internal communication tool. So you never know when you find hidden gems. But I think you always need a supportive group around you. And that's one thing that I think Gaurav and I have done a very good job. We started off with getting lucky of having this group of really supportive cheerleaders around you. And we went on to replicate that as we kept going, which is we don't want naysayers. We want people who are obnoxiously optimistic and know that this will work, irrespective. And I think that's what keeps you going. Like, of course, 90% of the people will say this won't work, but you know, that's not what we thrive on.
That seems to be kind of your motto. I was looking through your LinkedIn, and there's a quote that you put down just, you know, a couple weeks ago, and it says the three things that keep me going on a difficult day are passion, optimism, and gratitude. And it says mindset is what separates a good day from a bad one, and I am grateful that my stumbles are an amazing learning opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's your quote. That's awesome.
Yeah, that is completely true. I have very recently started very consciously living by that. I knew that those are characteristics that I have, but the days when things are bad, you have to look around and go like, things could have been worse, you know? We could have been dying with no money in our bank account. We recently raised a Series A on this. It was a $16 million round, we were very grateful for it. But, you know, on the same day, of course, an escalation has to happen. That's just how it works. And, you know, you're like, all your negative, you know, energy goes onto that escalation. You're like, life sucks and this sucks. And you're like, you know, things could have been worse. You could have been dying. You could have had no money. You know, there could have been a lot of things. Your product couldn't have been working, or, you know, there's so much that can happen. So, you know, you have to be consciously grateful and consciously optimistic. I was reading a study somewhere where they said that they did the study between people who are optimistic, people who are pessimistic, and what we call as realistic. And they said that people who are optimistic are actually closer to being realistic than people who are pessimistic. Because pessimistic people won't even give it a shot, even though it might be possible, because they think it can be done, as opposed to optimistic people who always think that something can happen. So, which was pretty interesting, you know. It kind of makes sense, but, you know, I never thought about it like that.
It is. Can you recall where that study was? Can you recall that off the top of your head?
So I did, I don't know the study, but I did this course with Gaurav at USC, and it's about entrepreneurial mindset. So basically it was, and I'm missing the name, but it was this neuroscientist, and basically he did the study of athletes, people in the military, and try to see what separates the really good athletes, the really good people in the military against the rest of the crowd. And these three things, which I mentioned, optimism, gratitude, and purpose, these three are exactly what translate into you being successful versus not. So he was kind of putting the same thing into an entrepreneurial mindset, going like, these are the three things that separate someone who will be exceptional versus not. So he was the one who talked about the study of optimism versus realism.
Huh, that's very interesting.
Pretty interesting, yeah.
I can see it. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Entrepreneurs are kind of like the top athletes in the business world. I mean, you can see it after talking to so many of them.
Yeah.
May not have the physical abilities, but definitely the mental capacity is there for sure.
Yeah, we're a jock when it comes to the mind.
I like it. I like it. I think we're definitely going to pull that one out and put that somewhere. We're the jock when it comes to the mind. I like it. Yeah. So, just for our viewers out there, go to involve.ai. It's a great looking website, and you can click on the story, their little story, how they got their Series A raise. That's an awesome read, and we went over some of it so far in this conversation, but there's so much to dig up and go over there. It's a very, very cool story. I would like to pivot a little bit and go over, like I said, there's so much to uncover in your bio that we read. Let's talk a little bit about, like, you're the founder of a nonprofit for in India for women empowerment. There's so much there. So let's start there. Let's talk about that nonprofit and what's going on there, what that's all about, and then we can go from there.
So the nonprofit that I started it when I was 18. It was the first time that I think without any help, I was able to do the entire paperwork by myself, which I was really proud of.
Nice.
So, like, no help from, of course, some help from lawyers, but no help from my mom, who was like always breathing down my neck before that. So it was like a lot of fun. But again, I feel very strongly about women being in tech and about women being treated equally. It's not something.
Can we give that nonprofit a shout out? What's the name of that nonprofit?
It's called Saakaar, and I'll send you the link later, so you can kind of check that out. But yeah,
and we'll put that on the landing page as well.
That is awesome. Live. I appreciate it.
Yes.
So we did. We started that again. There was about 8 really amazing women on the board. There were lawyers and there were people as government officials who came on the board who all felt really strongly about it. And what we feel, we all collectively discussed about women empowerment is something so broad. Like, it can be anything and everything. So we wanted to focus on something where we thought, like, where we started seeing a difference between men and women, like when people start treating us differently. And we thought that was more on the, not the middle school level. So that is the time when, you start getting treated more like a girl, specifically that you should be, not doing boy things. You should not be going outside. So, we started going to schools, which were underprivileged schools, and that was literally what we did. We ran training seminars for parents of girl children in underprivileged schools, because that is the time when girl children tend to drop out the most. So it's not at the primary level. It's more at the middle school level. So a lot of the girl children, if you see the conversion rate of, men kind of finishing high school versus women, it's enormous. There's an enormous difference. It's because girls start dropping out in middle school level, because that's the time that they can start doing chores at home. That's the time they can start taking care of the younger siblings. That's the time, when they can help, they can go and start earning money, like they can be house help in somebody's house. They can start doing these things on their own. So they'd rather use them for that than get them educated, because they don't think there's value in getting a woman educated. So that's where we started. So the entire goal was to run very, very organized training seminars for the parents of these girl children. And the outcome of that has to be that you need to keep them in school. Talking about value of, like, if they're educated, and we used to give examples like, if they're educated, they graduate high school and they become a teacher, they can earn way more for your family than what they can right now. So again, we would try to break it down, not in terms of like this lofty idea of women empowerment and you should treat men and women equally, because families that are underprivileged are just trying to make ends meet. So if they see value of like getting money into the household now, they will make sure that that happens. So that was kind of like the training seminars that the nonprofit would run. So it was amazing. We went to so many schools across Delhi, Agra, and Jaipur, which was a very different experience, because there are so many different languages that you have to get used to. You have to talk in different dialects of Hindi. I think my Hindi became really strong then. I always had a very weirdly accented Hindi, and I don't know why, but I had to really, really fix my dialect.
Yeah, it's that's the same kind of going around the United States sometimes here too. Yeah, I'm sure it's a little bit different, but kind of the same.
Yeah, it's pretty much like, I think it's exactly the same. Like, how it's like, it's still English, but there's certain words that are pronounced so differently. That's exactly how Hindi goes. So yeah, it was fun trying to like get them to understand what I'm saying. Like, there was a lot of times like somebody would go like, "Shut up, I'll talk." I was like, "Okay."
Okay.
Oh, I don't mind it.
Thank you.
I was like, I hate public speaking. Like, I'll do it, but I don't know that survey. Like, people would rather. There was like a study of like what people are most scared of, and the list was like public speaking and then self-immolation. Like, people would rather set themselves on fire than speak in public. I'm like, I'm perfectly happy. I'm like, you go talk.
Yeah, that's just crazy. I don't know. I've never had an issue making a fool of myself in public, but that's just me.
Oh, no, don't worry. I'm in the same boat as you. I spoke once at high school, and it was some debate or something. And I was like trying to like, you hit on the podium to try to show like, that you're passionate about it. The podium fell on the people. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, it's all good. So you have done some amazing things. Forbes 30 under 30, Stevie Gold Entrepreneur of the Year, 50 most powerful women in tech, the list of the top 100 women in tech. It's pretty awesome and amazing stuff to get on one of those lists. You're on all of those lists. So, I mean, you've done that. How does that make you feel? And I mean, was that a goal of yours, or did all that just kind of happen?
Good question. I'll start. It wasn't definitely a goal, but it was definitely a nice to have. It was really, I think Forbes 30 under 30 was like super exciting, and I think that kind of like snowballed into the rest of it. But no, it was never quite a goal, but it feels really good to be recognized. it's really fun that, when I got, like, for example, the Forbes 30 under 30, it's like I knew that I was being considered, and that was about it. Um, so, you have that anticipation, what's going to happen. Like, it becomes a goal when you know you're getting considered because you want to win.
Sure.
So that was kind of like when I was told that I was in the running for the list. And it was really exciting because for enterprise SaaS, Eric Wan, the CEO of Zoom, was one of the judges. And and that kind of made it like even bigger for me because he's like a personal idol of mine. I absolutely love him. So it was really great that, I got selected. Um, but I think that's like the entrepreneurial mindset, I would say, like, which is like when the minute like you overcome one thing, you're like on to the next. So I
Mm-hmm.
never like, there was like no party or there was no celebration, not even in my head that I was like, yes, like I should like let this moment like sink in and get super excited about it. I'm like, okay, it's done. What's next? So that's kind of like overall like my thought process around it, but I'm incredibly grateful. I mean, it's not easy. It doesn't happen to a lot of people, and I recognize that. So I feel very happy. I think my parents feel happier. Some stereotypes about
Sure.
Indian parents are true. With mine, they have like this coffee table book and they have these certificates that are on the wall. And it's like, it's not even like subtle. Like when guests come over, they just slide that coffee table book over. I'm like, I was like, this is like shameless. You need to calm down.
Hi, how you doing? Nice to have you over for dinner. This is my daughter.
Yeah, it's literally that. And so every time like an article comes, they have got like this, a printer guy, like who does the professional prints. They've got them on retainer because they send that over. He makes a print of it, they laminate it, and then add it to their book. So it's so they're like creating like my biography without me even knowing. But it's not even, I can't even call it a humble brag. It's like a shameless brag. I'm like, here you go. So they've got my name on Google Alerts, which is really funny because every time like my name pops up somewhere, they're the people to tell me that, oh, did you know you got this award? Let me send it on all the WhatsApp groups. And I was like, oh my God. So that's
Well,
kind
at
of
least you don't have to brag for yourself. They've got it
yeah.
covered.
Yeah, yeah, and they're like, if they had a superpower, I wish I were a superhero, I wish I could fly. They already have their superpower, which is like the humble brag. Nobody does it better than them, which is hilarious.
Well, well, good. At least they've got it. They've got it covered.
I love them. They're
So
amazing.
that's good. That's good. At least you don't resent them. That's a good thing.
Oh, totally. Like it's like so funny. They're like the characters in my life. Like it's cool because what I was talking about, like having these group of like fanatical supporters around you, like
Mm-hmm.
that's what they are. Like even on my bad day, they're the ones who are like showing me this article, making me feel good about myself. Like on the days when I don't, which
Yeah,
is
that's awesome.
they're like the biggest cheerleaders and they're like, you can do no wrong. Look at this article. Look how awesome you are. Which
That's
is pretty
awesome.
good. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, I want to go back a little bit in what you said just a few minutes ago. You said you get done with one thing and you're on to the next. You're on to the
Mm-hmm.
next. You're on to the next. So I want to see, like, are you just always on to the next, or do you take some time for yourself? Like, do you have any hobbies, interests? Do you have, like a work-life balance, or are you just always on to the next thing? You've been doing this since you were 15. Are you just always on go, or do you have some break time built into your life?
Um, I was I want to say till about 3 years ago, I had no work-life balance, none at all. I had when I had 18-hour days, start at 5, finish at 9. Like that's literally like my whole world was that. Very recently, I've started, and that's just the kind of person I am. I've always been
Mm-hmm.
like this. Like I am very OCD about completing something. Like I need to get it done, and I'm a perfectionist. And sometimes it's not always possible in like the entrepreneurial journey, but that's like my basal mindset, and which I've had to tweak over a period of time. Now I would very happily like to say I do have very good work-life balance because I feel it's important. I meditate regularly, which I feel has been one of the most game-changing things for me. Um, it as I think as pressures grow, anxiety is always a part of your journey. Imposter syndrome is always a part of your journey. There are days when you go like, am I even meant to do this? Am I even good enough? And when something's like going really downhill, I think meditation has really helped me through that, which is just
Nice.
focus on the now, focus on today. You're here, you're breathing. You still have the capability of getting out of the problem. It's not the end until it's the end. So that's really helped me. Um, in terms of hobbies, I am the best trashy show Netflix watcher on this planet. I am so good. I can get through entire seasons of absolute garbage in one weekend. It's like the show is longer than like the number of hours in the day, but I get through it. So that's
So what's your
definitely.
favorite trashy show?
I just finished Marriage versus Mortgage, which is
Oh, I
amazing.
haven't even heard of that one.
I know you won't, most of them. And then the other one that I just finished binge watching are two seasons of The Circle. Have you seen that too?
Well, I watched the movie The Circle with
No,
Tom
that's
Hanks,
that's a
but
good that's
not.
good Tom Hanks. No, the trashy The Circle. It's like a show, and it's a social media. It's like a social media experiment where basically people. It's like, I don't know. Have you heard of Big Brother? It's like Big
Hmm.
Brother, but without them ever seeing each other, and it's all avatars. It's social media avatars.
Oh,
And they're just interacting with each other. So
huh.
um, I recommended it to a couple of people who could not sit through it. They were like, "What is wrong with you?" So yeah,
Well, probably because your brain is always on go. You
yeah,
just need something to let it go.
exactly. And I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of Bollywood. Like I am like you know, there's a genre in Bollywood which is called leave your brain at home genre. Like, it's like people flipping cars, like jumping off like from one building roof to another. Like it's like crazy stuff. Like a guy gets like acid thrown on him and just the shirt rips away, but the body's intact, like that kind of stuff. And I would watch that day in and day out. So I recommended it to a couple of my engineers, and they were so horrified. They were like, I don't think I can have meetings with you anymore.
Well,
So,
I liken that to we have uh, a doctor here in town who's just. I mean, he's an old fashioned doctor, right? Like he does house calls. He works with
mhm,
our elderly patients here, and he's just always on go, right?
right.
And he's a fantastic doctor, and he's got a fairly good sized yard, and he mows it every 4 days with a push mower. And we're like, why don't you get a riding lawnmower? He's like, because I just need to do something physical and dumb that I don't need to think about. And
Yep.
he just loves doing it. He just, every 4 days, he just goes out and mows his yard. And it's just something that he can just do. And when he's done, it just looks like a carpet, you
That's
know?
amazing.
And I mean, it's just the same. I think it's the same type of thing. He
Exactly.
just needs to do something that just is,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think I was talking to somebody, and I do that. I have a dishwasher, but I don't. I hand wash dishes, and it's just,
Hmm.
I think everybody likes control, and in certain jobs, especially if you're a doctor, you don't have control. You can do your best, but then some things are out of your control, same as entrepreneurial journeys. And I think just doing these mindless tasks, it's a checklist. It's a complex task that has a start and an end, but you can control the whole thing. And it's like it relieves anxiety a lot. So yeah, I would totally agree with that because I hand wash dishes. When I am like extremely stressed, I go on this crazy like cleaning, spree. I'm like cleaning everything, like the bathroom, the bedroom, like you name it, it's like sparkling. But it's just something physical that, also helps the others in process. They were like, why isn't she more stressed? She should clean the bathroom. I need my bathroom cleaned. Something.
Nice. Well, um, we'll kind of get back on topic here. I'm loving
Right.
this, but we're gonna have to kind of get
Yep.
back on topic and bring this thing into a close here. Um, in your mind, what makes for a good leader, and how are you working on this? What are you working on this in this category?
That's a great question. So my definition of a good leader is transforming every 3 months. And I think depends
Oh,
upon, so here's my theory. A good leader at one stage of the company might not be a good leader at another stage. So the
true.
leader has to be a stage fit for the stage the company is at. Um, in the very early days of Involve, when we were 10 employees, a good leader needed to be a player coach. Like that person
Hmm.
needs to be able to do the task while training other people. So in the beginning, when I was running tech and product, I had to be able to code. I had to be able to design product elements. I needed to be able to run user tests. So everything that my team was doing, I should be able to do it too so that I can train my first layer of management. So that's what I think an early stage leader looks like. Um, a mid-stage company, I want to say Series A, Series B, I think that changes. A good leader is somebody who can run good one-on-ones with people who are managing other people, the managers of managers. So you're not directly managing people and telling them what to do. You need to direct managers who are running other teams. Um, in that, I feel a good leader has to be optimistic, has to be motivational, has to be able to hire, has to be able to fire, and has to be able to have a really big vision. I think that vision is what becomes the hallmark of, the entire company. For us, we realized that when we raised money and we grew suddenly, and we literally grew from 10 to 45 employees in 3 months.
Wow.
So it was massive for us to suddenly, like, there are small changes like, Zoom cannot fit the team anymore. Like, you can't have town halls anymore. So your entire processes that were working at one stage have to disintegrate and you have to create new ones to be able to accommodate for these changes. The one thing that we did realize is Gaurav and I, we were so used to being player coaches that being able to give up that control, the ultimate control, that if I say deploy, then only you will deploy the code. If I say no, it needs to stop. Giving up that control and giving it to somebody else was really hard. So that's one
Yeah.
thing I feel that would make a good leader. The second, I think, was really important, and this has to be at every stage, and we started doing this, is setting company wide, very strong goals. So we're a big proponent of OKRs. Everyone needs to, so we have two things that we do rigorously every quarter: set goals and give everyone accountability. Everyone needs to know what their role is and how that ties into the bigger vision of the company. So we build quarterly goals and then we build milestone goals, which is every quarter, why are we doing this? How does that roll up into the milestone that we want to achieve? And then who's going to be playing what part and how well? So that's the OKRs that we do. And the other thing that I feel a good leader has to do is build strong areas of responsibility. Nobody needs to have confusion about who owns what piece. So if X needs to happen, go to Y person, nobody else. So we build every quarter very strong AORs that we strictly update every 3 months. So setting goals, motivating people, and pushing them to be their best version, I think has to be what makes a good leader.
Yeah, that is one of the best answers I've gotten from that question.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. What advice would you give founders or soon-to-be founders that are watching this conversation?
It's not just about hard work. It's about smart work and a little bit of getting lucky. Sometimes you don't get lucky, so there's always a way around it. I feel if you're a soon-to-be founder, the only advice I can do is do your customer research. Make sure that the product is a painkiller and not a vitamin, and that somebody will. It's harder to build and grow a company when you realize it later that this is a vitamin and not a painkiller. So do your customer research. Be open to criticism early as opposed to later. So it's better that 100 people shoot down your idea as opposed to 100 people shoot down your product. It'll hurt way more. So you can still pivot. It's easy to pivot. It's easy to morph an idea into something else. It's not that easy to do that with a product. So that is for soon-to-be founders. And for founders, I got you. If you ever need a shoulder to cry on, I'm there. The most important thing is perseverance. I think for founders, like being a first principle thinker is most important. Bigger problems always arise. Break it down into smaller ones, and you'll probably see a light at the end of the tunnel. And the other thing is, everybody is feeling exactly what you're feeling. The days you feel you're not good enough, the days you feel this is too hard, why did I do this? I should have just gotten that job at Google. Everyone has those thoughts. And founders have this mentality of not sharing their fears and only sharing successes because you need to project. Find other founders to talk to because they're probably going through the same thing that you are.
Yeah. Awesome. You heard it here. Like, she's got you.
Yeah.
Got your back.
Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll respond.
Which brings me to my very last question. What is the best way for viewers to get in touch with you? Great segue.
There you go. Telepathy. There we go. I am on LinkedIn like people are on Instagram. So please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll respond. I usually respond to messages. If you need help, let me know. And also just make sure that the title is Fuse Show so I know that you listen. So I'll make sure that I respond.
Awesome. Saumya, it was awesome to have you. That was a great conversation. I enjoyed it very, very much. You are full of insight.
Appreciate it.
And your story is amazing. Great job on involve.ai
Thank you.
Everything else that you have been doing. If you're watching this, go to the landing page. We'll have information on. Remind me the name of
Nonprofit? Yeah, Saakaar.
Saakaar. We'll have the information for that on the landing page, along with all the information for Saumya.
Okay.
It was awesome. Awesome to have you. Thank you so much for being on the show.
You. And Bud, you have to watch The Circle and tell me what you think. Were you able to sit through it?
I'll turn it on with my wife, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'll let you know.
Perfect.
All right. You have a fantastic day.
You too. Bye-bye.